The 2nd century is the true dark age of the history of Christianity. At the beginning of that century, we see a group of small churches scattered around the eastern Mediterranean, and we're familiar with those churches from the letters of Paul and from the Acts of the Apostles. By the end of the 2nd century, we have a highly structured church with an emerging canon, a clear set of doctrines, a very clear sense of its own distinctive identity. Judaism is long in the past. It is now seeking to be a religious force in the Roman Empire and is seeking to make itself understood within the categories of Greco-Roman thought. If we think of the letter we call the first letter of Clement, which is probably in the middle of the last decade of the 1st century, and the writings of Irenaeus of Lyon in the 180s, we see that in a period of 90 years, we have shifted from small churches to one big church with an elaborate and very organised teaching office. Between those two dates lie the documents that you will study in the module, The Developing Tradition. And it's very clearly the agenda of the module to try and show you that when we can't see that century whole, we can see themes that will link the early part with the later part. So it's an attempt, as it were, to drill each unit is like a little archaeological trench into the darkness of the 2nd century and try and glimpse this emerging tradition. And so we use documents that clearly have a unity in themselves. We use Gospels that we would now label apocryphal Gospels, and we use homilies. They're not a coherent set because there's now just too much material, but equally they form an attempt to be a representative set of the material of the 2nd century, so that you can start drawing lines between the earlier and the later situation. You'll notice that there is a major gap in this module, or perhaps you haven't. Well, I'll tell you what it is. And that is, I have left completely out of account the writings of Justin the Martyr. And the reason for that is simple. Justin is too large to become a unit, and before you could study Justin, you need a larger introduction to the 2nd century. So this is an attempt to show you the diversity of the 2nd century and to give you a handle on that fundamental task. How did the 2nd century interpret what they inherited for the 1st century and transmit it to the later generations of Christians? Christian identity, as we see it throughout the patristic period, was to a large extent formed in this period. And each of the units is intended to help you to see this process of identity formation taking place in a different way. Each of the documents has at one stage or another been called an identity formation document. And if you keep that idea in mind as you read them, you will see, well, I hope you will see, that they show you both the continuity with what went earlier and with what came later, but also just how different the 2nd century's position on believing that Jesus is the Christ is, from the writings that you can look at in the New Testament collection, and from the very developed Christologies that you will find in the patristic period. If you feel that this is a cusp period, and that these documents are giving you a sense of being on that cusp, then you are getting a sense of this module. If also you feel that this identity formation leaves an awful lot of grey areas, that too is good. There is a great deal of greyness and stuff that we just do not understand about the writings from this period. That's both the challenge and the fascination of these documents. I hope you will enjoy reading them.